While talk of diplomacy continues, weapons are fired from both sides, and they continue to be fired. Senior Foreign Affairs correspondent Greg Palcott is in Tel Aviv tonight with the latest. Good evening, Greg.
Good evening, Brett. Yes, as we enter that week 2 of the war between Israel and Iran, there is no sign of letting up. Sunbathers dashing today from a Tel Aviv beach as sirens wailed. Soon after, the sky was filled with anti-missile defenses, chasing Iranian missiles that could someday be nuclear tipped, a reason to fight on.
As long as it takes. That's the answer. As long as it takes, because we face an existential danger, a dual existential danger.
The biggest hit of the day by Iran was the main northern port of Haifa. Some 20 missiles targeted that location. Authorities say over 20 injured, some seriously. Iranian missiles also targeted southern Israel. In the town of Beersheba, one of the missiles hit a software firm linked to the IDF. There are many military targets in the region. For Iran these days, the best defense is in offense.
We are entitled, tasked, and determined to defend our territorial integrity, national sovereignty, and security with all force.
For their part, Israeli pilots made some 50 bombing runs against Iran in the last 24 hours. Among the many targets, missile launch sites. Israel claims to have knocked out half of them. And anything related to Iran's efforts to build a nuclear bomb. One of the latest hits, a research facility. On this, the UN nuclear watchdog chief tells Fox there is unanimity.
I think internationally there is a consensus that Iran should not be nuclearly armed.
A top Israeli military official saying today theirs is a very complex mission and that it could take a lengthy time to achieve. That is, if they're fighting alone. Brett.
Greg Palcott live in Tel Aviv. Greg, thank you.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says Israel can hit all of Iran's nuclear sites, including Fordow, without help from the United States.
President Trump will do what's best for America. I trust his judgment. He's a tremendous friend, a tremendous world leader, a tremendous friend of Israel and the Jewish people. And we will do what we have to do, and we are doing it. We are committed to destroying the nuclear threat, the threat of a nuclear annihilation against Israel. We're able to do it, and we, of course, will make our own determination.
But some military analysts say that America's bunker buster bomb is the only thing that has a chance at destroying Fordow, which is believed to be more than 200 feet underground. The bomb can only be delivered by American B-2 stealth planes. General Keane, so the White House official told Fox News that the U.S. Air Force has no doubt about the efficacy of this massive ordnance penetrator. They also say no option's been taken off the table, including tactical nukes. What do you think is the best way forward in terms of the weapon to use to destroy Fordow?
Well, I think this is the best weapon. I mean, Prime Minister Netanyahu, in terms of dealing with his domestic audience and his obligation to protect them against all weapons out there, is making those statements with that in regard. I mean, he does have options. He can do a commando-type raid on the facility, put an air cap of fighters over it while they go down. And it takes time, blow up a facility of that. And can he get those people out of there unharmed is another issue. There's a lot more risk. They can hit the electric grid that drives the centrifuges and the ventilation system as well. But all of those may be able to achieve an end result with a fair amount of risk. The best option is the option that you're talking about, is the MOP, so to speak, because of its vast capability to distribute this, bring the system down. We don't know for certain because we've never used it on a mountain of rock like that where the facility is 300 feet into the ground. But it still remains the best option. You don't walk away from it because it may not be perfect. Eisenhower was going into Normandy, and the chances, he said it out loud, probably 50-50. What was the alternative? We lose the war.
Yeah.
What's the alternative here? They get a nuclear weapon? Of course we're going to try it. I mean, the president offered to Prime Minister Netanyahu about a week or two ago, he said, if you need our help, let us know.
Yeah. Cheryl has a question for you, but right before we get to that, I just want to ask you to address a chief criticism that I have heard of those who fear forever wars. There's been the suggestion, I think President Trump's made it clear, look, I'm not trying to take out Khamenei right now. I'm not asking for regime change. I'm looking at this strike. Is it possible to separate the two and ensure a forever war does not happen, but that Iran does not get nuclear weapons with a strike on Fordo?
Yeah, I really find this argument quite shallow and a bit absurd. Yes, Iraq and Afghanistan, these are the cases that are referred to forever wars. Those were choices to go in and take a regime down. I'm not going to relitigate the reasons. Take a regime down in both cases, physically take them down, occupy the country, and rebuild the country so it can survive on its own. That became, quote, a forever war or a protracted war. What do we have on the table here? This is Israel's war against Iran. They have no intentions whatsoever of putting a ground force into Iran, of decapitating the regime physically or in occupying Iran. And we certainly have none of those options on the table. All we are doing is participating in Israel's war. And we want to do one thing. In addition to providing intelligence and logistics, and a lot of munitions that they're using came from us. They want us to take down a target for them that they don't have certainty they can destroy. A target. And what I think the message should be to the Ayatollah from the president is, we intend to do this limited strike in Israel's war. We are not going to war with you. We are supporting our partner. However, if you retaliate against us, then you're going to get war from the United States. And you will suffer the consequences. And that war will be an air and maritime strike on him. There would be no intention to go in there, invade the country, change the regime, and occupy it. That's off the table. And we should stop talking about a forever war being the outcome of one limited airstrike.
General, I wanted to ask you about Israel's military capabilities. There's some new analysis this morning from the Wall Street Journal. It talks about the weight on the Israeli economy and also on their forces because of the amount of attacks they're conducting on Iran right now. These interceptor missiles that they're using, those are $200 million a day that it's costing them. Building repairs that we're seeing with the damage, that's $400 million. And they say that in general, that the Israelis only have about 4 weeks, and that would be a $12 billion hit to them economically, as well as they are going through these weapons and these missiles. Is there a way for the United States to facilitate help on that end? And also the other issue is, you mentioned Iran and the Houthis in the top of the show. I wanted to ask you about this because the U.S. Treasury just sanctioned a bunch of Houthi-tied organizations that are going after the oil revenue. Yeah,
modern warfare is very expensive. And you've seen it when we're using our weapon systems, how expensive they are. And when we're using, $1 million weapon system to shoot a drone out of the air that costs $5,000 or something like that, there's something wrong with that picture. But the reality is, Israel has never been down this road before, since their existence in 1948. In their minds, this is definitely a protracted war. Their military is organized around a small active duty force to fight something that is not going to be elongated. They bring in where the majority of the force is their reserves, and their plan is 40 days at the max. Well, look where we are. And that has taken a toll on their society in a way that no other war prior to this has. All of those wars have lasted weeks. This one has lasted months and now going into years. So that is an economic burden. I think it's a psychological and emotional burden. I think the fact that the hostages, given the numbers they took and the length of time that they're still in captivity, has captured the nation quite seriously in terms of their compassion for what has taken place. Remember the one soldier that they held for over a year, and the whole nation was involved in getting that soldier back. They were all committed to it emotionally and psychologically, and they returned 1,000 prisoners to get that one soldier back. Was nothing short of remarkable. It gives you a sense. Look at This is a country of 9 million people, about 7, 8 million Jews there. This is the smallest tribe on the planet. This is about destroying the state of Israel, that small tribe, and making it such a volatile security situation that parents don't want to raise their children there and their grandchildren, and they migrate out. That is the Ayatollah's objective, short of the nuclear bomb. And that's what October the 7th was all about, is creating that kind of volatility and that emotional impact. So yes, as the longer this goes on, it is a burden, financial burden and an emotional burden for the Israelis to deal with it. That's why I think it's so important, you know, for the President of the United States and other allies to wrap their arms around the Israelis and let them know we're here for you. We're gonna be there for you. And it's an emotional thing for them to receive that message. I'll never forget Les Walzenza, who I had in front of me. He was telling the story when they were rebelling against the communists, and he was the welder who did that, eventually became president. And tears started to come down his eyes when he said, Reagan, I heard his voice. I heard his voice. He was there for us, not with guns. He was there with American emotional and psychological support. We are behind you. This is critical for the Israelis. They got to know we're there for them. And this horrible thing that's spreading around the planets in this city and other places of anti-Semitism is just outrageous. And all of us, Jews, non-Jews, Gentiles, Muslims, we got to speak out about it. It is outrageous. The people have in mind the destruction of the Jewish race is what is behind this stuff. It's not just Israel. And that is horrific. And God-loving people like the rest of us need to stand up against it.
That is so well said. And if you don't understand that, just look up 9-month-old Kafir Beavis, his coffin, which was returned, 4-year-old Ariel Beavis, his mom, Shiri, all killed, the husband, Yarden, surviving without his little infants by his side.
So with that, we bring in Elika Laban, Iranian-American attorney and activist. Elika, good to have you back with us. You know, I'm curious your reaction to that. You heard the Crown Prince in exile talking about the fact that he believes that this is a tipping point, that the regime in Iran is collapsing and that the Iranian people are ready for a new future. What do you say to that?
Well, first, I think I'd just like to echo his sentiments in saying that, you know, ideally, we would want as minimal damage to Iran as possible, regardless of the outcome. You know, this is still our country. We still want to keep it intact. And I think, you know, when we're talking about using these B-2s on Fordo, I think we have to really question what would the intention behind that be? Because to me, that signals no intent to complete this process where we would actually see regime changes, almost saying, well, the regime is going to stay in place, so we should take out the nuclear facilities, assuming that there is going to be no regime change, because if there is regime change, that's not something that you need to worry about. So I think what a lot of Iranians are thinking right now or wondering is where does this go? You know, I think Iranians have a lot of mixed feelings, a lot of mixed emotions, because you know, obviously war is a horrendous thing. It's a tragic thing, but they are sort of questioning, will there be regime change at the end of this? Not necessarily externally imposed, but a grassroots movement that topples the Ayatollah's regime and brings in a new regime. And so to that end, the question is, will these strikes be sufficient to weaken the regime enough for the Iranian people to bring in another regime?
I mean, it seems the economy is in such bad shape. One of the few things that the Ayatollah has on his side is this, you know, threat of this nuclear weapon. So that would be, you know, the reason I think to take it out. But look at these protesters that we're seeing in the streets in Tehran in support of the regime, in support of keeping the regime. And you're seeing them in places like Iraq and Lebanon as well. What's your reaction to that?
Yeah, I mean, I saw New York Times posted this this morning, and I left them a lengthy comment. You know, it's known that statistically, 81% of people in Iran are opposed to this regime, and 99% of Iranians in the diaspora are opposed to this regime. So we're talking about 90% of Iranians in the world that are unanimously opposed to this regime. And then we have these media outlets that are taking a tiny sample of the population and using that as reflective of the entire population of Iran. And it's so dishonest. And the worst part about it is that when the actual voice of the Iranian people were rising up over the last couple of years, those same media outlets refused to report it. And so you have to wonder, whose side are they on?
Erica Laban, thank you very much. Good to have you with us today.
A new wave of missile strikes rocking the Middle East as the Israel-Iran conflict enters a second week. President Trump met with his national security team today at the White House, and then he spoke with reporters after landing in New Jersey, where he doubled down on his 2-week deadline for the mullahs to come to the negotiating table.
We've been speaking to Iran, and we'll see what happens. Israel's doing well in terms of war, and I think you would say that Iran is doing less well. Sometimes you need some toughness to make peace. I would say 2 weeks would be the maximum.
Peace through strength. And President Trump also reminding reporters that Iran is not their friend.
Are you concerned that Iran or its proxies would wage terror attacks against American targets abroad if you order military action?
We're always concerned about that, and we have to take them out and be very strong. You're even in danger talking to me right now. Do you know that? You are in danger talking to me right now. So I should probably get out of here, but you guys are actually in danger.
Now, all of this comes as Iranian negotiators held talks with European officials in Geneva, and Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu hinted that he might not wait for that 2-week deadline.
President Trump will do what's best for America. I trust his judgment. He's a tremendous friend, a tremendous world leader, a tremendous friend of Israel and the Jewish people. And we will do what we have to do, and we are doing it. We are committed to destroying the nuclear threat, the threat of a nuclear annihilation against Israel. We're able to do it. And we, of course, will make our own determination.
So here's how the posture of the negotiations began. We all remember the Truth Social post, unconditional surrender. Khamenei responded saying, "We will never surrender." Greg, the readouts that I'm getting from these European negotiations, they've rejected talks with the U.S. Not only that, when asked about zero enrichment, Iran said, "Undoubtedly, we reject this, especially now under Israel's strikes." That's according to Reuters. So it sounds like it's going great.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I love Trump saying you're in danger if you talk to me right now. I say that after I have a burrito for lunch. Today's 5 is my last one for a week. I'm going on vacation, so I'm really kind of upset you asked me first because I kind of checked out already. But the one thing I like talking about, not the things that are going on in there, because I don't trust half the stuff I hear, and I have a feeling this is going to go on for a while. I like watching people talk about it. And there's these factions on the right, both pro and con, who thinks that someone can easily influence Trump, as if he isn't in control of his faculties, like he's Joe Biden, and he could be easily swayed by a Lindsey Graham or a Laura Loomer or a Mike Johnson. It's like, oh my God. And that directly contradicts your inherent faith and trust in the guy. I mean, in every issue, I see Trump kind of doing his own thing, which completely jibes with America's thing, whether it is crime or border or even tariffs. I mean, it's like he believes that helps Americans. He's going to do it. There's no bug in his ear unless that bug is American voices. I don't see him being swayed. The isolationists think, somebody's doing this. The interventionists say the other thing. But my guess is that he listens to everybody, and then he does what he does. He goes with his gut. It's kind of how you saw him adjust to the deportations. Goes all in, and then he lifts pressure in certain industries. There's no shame in that. So I think he's not under the spell of anybody. I'm hopeful that he does the right thing and that he knows what he's doing and that he's finding a path that isn't necessarily the paths that we keep hearing about. I mean, how do we get rid of Iran without putting boots on the ground? Does anybody know? Nobody seems to care about what's next. Including Jesse. He doesn't care.
I just care that you're okay on your vacation. A week in Iran is dangerous, Greg.
I know.
I don't know why you booked that.
That's why I'm dressed as the Ayatollah.
Yeah, good timing on that one, Greg. Jesse, Trump, to Greg's point, he goes with his gut. And he knows what to do and when to do it. And sometimes that gut is last minute. He said, we're going to give this 2-week negotiation period. He said today, maybe the strike on Fordo won't be necessary. But he often will make that call in the moment. I remember 2019, there were jets in the air ready to strike Iran. and then he pulled back because it wasn't the moment. He knows what to do, and he's going to do it when the time's right.
Yeah, he's like the guy that hands in the term paper at the last second. But he likes the pressure of it. He has these self-imposed deadlines, and I think it makes him think better. But the 2-week deal is smart because it gives you more military options. You can bring in another carrier to the region, and then you can also let Israel really soften up Iran. I mean, they could hit more targets. They could hit electrical transmission sites around Fordow. They could assassinate more commanders. And the hope is, from the administration, is that the Israeli bombing campaign could be so effective, you could bring the Iranians to their knees and say, fine, I'll give up the enrichment, whatever you want, just about regime survival at that point. But it doesn't look good, because you're right. What they're saying in Europe is that the negotiators from Tehran are not going to give up enrichment. So that doesn't speak well. The pump fake could be tomorrow. He could say, I'll give you 2 weeks, and the bombs can rain down tomorrow. We have to remember, though, air wars are not always completely effective. North Vietnam, Kosovo. I mean, they're great because you don't risk anybody, but, you know, you're not really there. But no one wants to be there. That's the problem. The concern is that if you knock out the nuke site and a lot of the other ballistic missile sites, you leave the Ayatollah in power. And then what? How do we know he doesn't have a clandestine nuclear program where they have, you know, they're spinning some centrifuges somewhere else that the Israeli intelligence hasn't discovered? How do we know he doesn't just spin these up all of a sudden? And then where are we now? We're in a worse position. Or if he falls to a coup, then you have 30,000 zealots who are running the country, the clerics, and they're going to back the guys with the guns. And the guys with the guns are the army. So then the army takes over. So what do you have then? You have a military dictatorship backed by religious zealots. Is that better? Is that worse? Nobody knows. Nobody knows anything, but I do know that the Saudi crown prince is meeting with American politicians to find out what a post-Ayatollah Iran looks like. So they're already planning for the Ayatollah gone. It's moving pretty fast.
Yeah, and he's drawn that red line, no nuclear weapons, so we'll see how he has to enforce that. Jessica, I wanted to bring in another voice, and this is very frighteningly Obama's Undersecretary of State for Public Diplomacy and Public Affairs. Let's listen to him.
They chant death to America. I went to Iran in 2014. I was sitting at a rally. These young guys were chanting death to America. They finished the chant, and 2 young men came over and said, "Are you American?" I said, "Yes." Says, "We want to welcome you to our country. We love American culture and love American movies." They wanted to talk about all these things. Iran is the most Western nation in the whole Middle East. We have much more in common with them than a lot of countries that we do have alliances with.
I don't think Iran's the most Western country in the Middle East. And he began by saying, why is it a foundational issue for Trump that Iran should not have a nuclear weapon? Maybe that philosophy is what got us here.
Definitely anti that philosophy. I don't think we should have a nuclear Iran by any means. I do think he's making an important point about civil society within Iran, that these are people who want to be free, who want to be able to dance in public and to drive cars, and for women not to be have to be covered and to be able to be educated and all of that. But you obviously have a tremendous problem here, and we're not safe, and our strongest ally in the region, Israel, isn't safe. And that's what this is fundamentally about. I very much think that Bibi gave up the game in that little presser that he had, where he said, Donald Trump is going to do what's best for America, and he's our great friend, and I'm going to do what's best for Israel. And since Operation Rising Lion began, Bibi has been doing what Bibi wants to do, and we're following along. I don't know where that leads, but this idea that Donald Trump adheres to deadlines is absolutely ludicrous. The man promised us a health care plan over 450 weeks ago. It has been infrastructure week since I was born. Russia's sanctions are supposed to be coming in 2 weeks. A tax plan. 2 weeks is meaningless. Jesse might be right. It may happen tomorrow. It may happen in 2 weeks. It may happen in a year. I don't know. But they're going to have to deal with the fact that there is a contrast within the intel community right now. Caroline Levitt from the podium is essentially parroting Israel or Mossad's assessment of the risk from Iran, saying that this could be a couple of weeks. Our intel community is saying that it could be several months to a year, which is what Tulsi Gabbard testified to in March. And apparently the intel community is completely split on this. Donald Trump is going to have to pick which camp he's in on this. It seems like he's leaning towards Bibi's assessment of it, that this is impending doom and that you need to decide within, the fake 2 weeks. But that's some really tough stuff, because what is the plan afterwards? I don't see how you do this without trying for regime change.
I would say it's preposterous to say that Trump is not a man of action. He took out Soleimani,
It's
took
not
out
about
al-Baghdadi. Hold
action.
on, I listened to the whole minute and a half long. And I didn't interrupt because I know you don't like that. He took out Soleimani.
Well, no one likes it.
He took out al-Baghdadi. He acted in Syria. All things Biden did not do. He did not act. Secondly, with regard to the intel community, I would just say this. I spoke to General Jack Keane today. He said for 25 years they've been building a nuclear program out in the public, 12 sites, their entire enterprise pointing towards nuclear weapons. So there's that. And I want to ask you, Mary Catherine Ham, Rahm Emanuel said last night, I think he's spot on, 1994, Bill Clinton had an opportunity to bomb North Korea's nuclear reactor. He didn't take it. Now we have a nuclear North Korea.
I would also note that the last deadline was 60 days of negotiations, and on day 61 is when the bombings started from Israel. So that's an important deadline. He's in a unique situation right here. He has a very tough decision to make, but he's in this situation where you could get more peace. As he says, toughness is needed for peace. I like it how it's his spin on peace through strength. And he has to make this decision. But as you point out, he has a record of having gone after people. I call it occasional bellicosity, whether it's Soleimani or it's moving going after the Houthis, taking shots that work and then pulling back. And Israel has done most of the work here, and he has a chance at a real historic moment, I think.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. Well, we will see when that moment comes. He said 2 weeks, could be sooner than that. Ahead, Democrats never learn. Rising star Jasmine Crockett just smeared half the country as mentally ill.
As you look live on Capitol Hill, tonight some congressional lawmakers are insisting that they have a role in President Trump's decision about whether to further involve U.S. forces in the Israel-Iran conflict. Also tonight, an update on the president's so-called Big Beautiful Bill, where that stands. Senior congressional correspondent Chad Pergram is live on Capitol Hill tonight with the latest. Good evening, Chad.
Brett, good evening. Republicans back the president even if some oppose involvement overseas. That could splinter the MAGA coalition and divide Democrats. Pro-Israel Democrats endorse an American attack.
I am worried that this is our shot. I mean, just to be very frank, this window is open now. We can't take our boot off their neck.
Hakeem Jeffries says the U.S. can't bomb Iran, quote, without the explicit approval of Congress. Other Democrats disagree.
We'll be flailing around. We'll be introducing resolutions. We'll be asking for hearings. But at the end of the day, we don't have any control over what President Trump ultimately decides to do in this situation.
Now, there's a bipartisan plan for the House to block airstrikes. The Senate considers a companion resolution next week. Brett?
Chad, another big Capitol Hill debate. Can the Senate pass the Big Beautiful Bill by July 4th?
Well, Republicans want to cut $1 billion. Senate budget rules force them to axe federal pay reductions. Wisconsin Republican Ron Johnson says the deadline may slip.
It depends on how quickly we can resolve these issues. Then the minute we change something, the House screams, well, we can't pass that.
The break for state and local taxes, known as SALT, is a big Senate change. The House approved a deduction of $40,000. The Senate squeezed that to $10,000.
That certainly is a deal breaker. Will implode the entire piece of legislation if the Senate sticks to that.
Now the Senate must fix disputes about Medicaid, and the real deadline is August. That's when the U.S. collides with the debt ceiling. Brett?
Okay, we'll follow it. Chad Pergram live on the Hill. Chad, thanks.
A short time ago, Russian President Vladimir Putin was asked if he is worried that the world could be heading toward World War III in this situation. Here's what he said.
It is disturbing. I am speaking without any irony, without any jokes. Of course, there is a lot of conflict potential. It is growing, and it is right under our noses, and it affects us directly. And this requires, of course, not only our careful attention to the events taking place, but also the search for solutions. The search for solutions, preferably by peaceful means.
All right, very interesting. Let's bring in Fox News senior correspondent Benjamin Hall, host of American Exceptionalism, available on Fox Nation. Ben, always good to have you with us. You know, this statement by Putin builds upon a statement by his spokesperson, Dmitry Peskov, who said, you know, don't even think about killing Khamenei, that would be opening Pandora's box, and that he believed there would be an outpouring of support for the Iranian regime. Your thoughts on where this stands, and Russia's bold talk, but not a lot of action on behalf of Iran?
Yeah, Martha, it's fascinating. We hadn't heard as much as we expected to from Russia until the last few days. But look, Russia is looking at one of its closest allies right now. Iran is part of that coalition between Russia, Iran, North Korea. And if Iran were to fall, and everyone's looking not just at the nuclear deal, but perhaps if it were to fall, that takes a big ally away from Russia, and they would do everything they can to try and shore them up. On top of that, we know that China is also really interested in having Iran on the table, and now we're seeing China planes flying into Iran, perhaps to pull people out, but also a real awareness of the 1.3 million barrels of oil a day that go from Iran to China. So you suddenly have this coalition of countries that have supported Iran who are pushing back against it. And of course, when Dmitry Peskov earlier said that, you know, if the Ayatollah was assassinated, then that would lead to severe consequences. They are thinking about Putin as well. They do not want to send a message that you can get rid of the leader of a country because you are at war with them, because, of course, that is Putin's own spokesman when he says that. So those countries looking really, really closely, and I think would do whatever they can to keep the Ayatollah in power.
Benjamin Hall, great coverage. Thank you very much. Good to see you.
All about Rwanda and the Congo. We'll be doing a peace settlement, probably coming in on Monday or Tuesday. We're going to be signing it up, and we've stopped a very vicious war. So that was an honor for me to be involved. I want to thank J.D. Vance for a great job, and also our Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, has done a fantastic job. So Rwanda, long-term war with the Congo, a very bloody war. They're all bloody, but this was a really bloody one, is going to be making peace with Congo, and they can get on to making trade deals with the United States and other places and have a much more normal form of life. We're very honored by that. As you know, we did a very great job with India and Pakistan, and we had India in. It looks like we're going to be making a trade deal with India. And we had Pakistan in. It looks like we're going to be making a trade deal with Pakistan. And it's a beautiful thing to watch. Serbia, Kosovo, likewise, they've been fighting for years. And as you know, we brought that one to a conclusion. And now we have a couple of big ones. We have Russia, Ukraine, which is making a little bit of progress. And we have Israel. And nobody really knows what that one is all about. We're going to find out pretty soon, I guess.
Mr. President, the Iranian foreign minister this afternoon said if the U.S. is serious about negotiations, that you would call up Israel and request that they stop their airstrikes. Will you make that request?
Well, I think it's very hard to make that request right now. If somebody's winning, it's a little bit harder to do than if somebody's losing. But we're ready, willing, and able, and we've been speaking to Iran, and we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. What was the thought process behind 2-week timetable? Just a time to see whether or not people come to their senses. That's all it is.
Did the Europeans help at all in talking with the Iranians?
No, they didn't help. No. Iran doesn't want to speak to Europe. They want to speak to us. Europe is not going to be able to help in this one.
20 years ago, you were skeptical of a Republican administration that attacked a Middle East country on the idea of questionable intelligence of weapons of mass destruction. How is this moment different with Iran?
Well, there were no weapons of mass destruction. I never thought there were. And that was somewhat pre-nuclear. You know, there was a nuclear age, but nothing like it is today. And it looked like I'm right about the material that they've gathered already. It's a tremendous amount of material. And I think within a matter of weeks, or certainly within a matter of months, they're going to be able to have a nuclear weapon. We can't let that happen. I was very much opposed to Iraq. I said it loud and clear, but I was a civilian, but I guess I got a lot of publicity. But I was very much opposed to the Iraq war. And I actually did say, don't go in, don't go in, don't go in. But I said, if you're going to go in, keep the oil. But they didn't do that.
What intelligence do you have that Iran is building a nuclear weapon? Your intelligence community has said they have no evidence that they are at this point.
Well, then my intelligence community is wrong. Who in the intelligence community said that?
Your director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard.
She's wrong.
Mr. President, Chinese in any way helping Iran at this moment? Clearing reports of serious planes landing in Iran from China?
They say that they're there to take people out, but I can't tell you about that. I get along very well with China, get along very well with President Xi. I like him, he likes me. We have a very good relationship. We'll see what happens. I can't imagine them getting involved.
The decision that you need to make on Iran, whether to strike militarily, is this the biggest decision you'll have to make as president?
Well, I can't tell you that. I have to see what happens. I can't, really say that. It depends what the decision is. But I wouldn't really be able to tell you that now. I'll tell you in about a year from now, maybe 5 years or 10 years from now. You never know about decisions. You never really know.
Sir, would you support a ceasefire while the negotiations happen?
I might, depending on the circumstances.
Would you?
It's very hard to stop. I will say this. It's very hard to stop when you look at it. Israel's doing well in terms of war. And I think you would say that Iran is doing less well. It's a little bit hard to get somebody to stop.
Sir, Liam Cosgrove with Zero Hedge. Former Congressman Matt Gaetz threw out an interesting idea suggesting that if you were to broker a deal where nuclear inspectors go into both Israel and Iran, that you could win a Nobel Peace Prize, and they might even rename it the Trump Peace Prize. Did you hear those? What do you think of that?
Well, they should give me the Nobel Prize for Rwanda and if you look, the Congo, or you could say Serbia, Kosovo, you could say a lot of them. You could say, the big one is India and Pakistan. I should have gotten it 4 or 5 times. I should get it for the, I would think the Abraham Accords would be a good one too. They won't give me a Nobel Peace Prize because they only give it to liberals.
Would you support Iran being able to have nuclear, or would you support Iran being able to have civilian nuclear energy capabilities up to 3.76%?
They're sitting on the top of one of the largest piles of oil in the world. I just don't know why they need that for civilian work. It's one thing for certain countries to say, hey, I want to have a certain amount where I can go nuclear a little bit because we need it for electricity, we need it for air conditioners, etc. But when you're sitting on one of the largest oil piles anywhere in the world, it's a little bit hard to see why you need that. Yeah.
Are you concerned that Iran or its proxies would wage terror attacks against American targets abroad if you order military action?
We're always concerned about that, and we have to take them out and be very strong. You're even in danger talking to me right now. Do you know that? You are in danger talking to me right now. So I should probably get out of here, but you guys are actually in danger. Can you believe it?
One more. Is it still your expectation that NATO countries spend 5% of their GDP on defense spending?
Well, I think they should do that. I don't think we should, but I think they should. We've been supporting NATO so long. In many cases, I believe paying almost 100% the cost. So I don't think we should, but I think that the NATO countries should, absolutely.
What, like Spain decides not to?
Well, NATO's going to have to deal with Spain. Spain's been a very low payer. They were always a very low payer. They were either good negotiators or they weren't doing the right thing. I think Spain has to pay what everybody else has to pay. Spain has been notorious for low pay. You know who else was a low payer, just about the lowest? A place called Canada. Because Canada said, why should we pay when the United States will protect us free? And they've been right about that.
Ukraine, you've been making progress towards a peace deal, but I don't know if you know this, but Lindsey Graham and Mike Pompeo were there on the ground in Ukraine, seemingly doing the opposite, trying to provoke the Ukrainians to keep fighting. What do you think of that?
Well, we're going to see, and people have to be very careful with what they say. They got to be very careful with their mouth, because their mouth can get them into a lot of trouble.
One more. ICE has said that they're trying to arrest up to 3,000 individuals a day. There are some communities that are saying they are fearful of being wrongfully detained or separating some families, even if they're undocumented. Is the fear in some of these communities worth the deportations of these undocumented individuals, a mass deportation program?
It's a tough subject because, look, we have farmers. I love farmers. I won 80%, 85% of the farmers. and I love them, and I'm never going to do anything to hurt our farmers. And you could also say the leisure business, etc. There are some businesses where you have a disproportionate amount of people that are the people that you're talking about. At the same time, we have to get the criminals out of our country. And we're looking at doing something where, in the case of good, reputable farmers, they can take responsibility for the people that they hire and let them have responsibility, because we can't put the farms out of business. And at the same time, we don't want to hurt people that aren't criminals. Most of the people that came in over the last 3 years under Biden, I would say probably 3.5 to 4 years, those people, you have a lot of criminals, you have a lot of, I mean, we're looking at that very closely. You've had people that have worked on farms for 20 years. It's very hard to go in there and say, you know, you're coming out. But we're going to let the farmers take responsibility. They're great people. They'll do it. They know the good and the bad. So the hard part about this is not like a normal war where people wear uniforms. They don't wear uniforms. But we have murderers that came out of the last 4 years. We have murderers. We have drug lords. We have people that we don't want to. We have prisoners. They emptied out Venezuela and many countries. They emptied out their prisons into the United States. We have to get those people out. But we have stone cold murders, 11,888 murders. We've already gotten a lot of them out of here, but we don't want them. So we have to be careful. But I never want to hurt our farmers. Our farmers are great people. They keep us happy and healthy and fat.
Are there other cities that you're going to try to replicate what you've done in Los Angeles?
Well, I mean, we had a big victory last night in the Court of Appeals with respect to Los Angeles, but really the country, where Gavin Newsom, who's really an incompetent governor, he's just doing a terrible job between his fires, between all the houses burning down, his forest fires, and now Los Angeles. If we didn't go to Los Angeles, and the sheriff admitted it, he had no control. He would have lost control. We saved Los Angeles by having the military go in. And the second night was much better. The third night was nothing much. And the fourth night, nobody bothered even coming. We put out that fire, and we did a great job of it. He sued us for going in and for helping him. We went and helped him. Right now, you'd have Los Angeles burning to the ground. Largely, it would have already been destroyed.
So do you think deportations should...
that of a peacemaker? Do you worry that striking Iran would change that?
Always a peacemaker. That doesn't mean sometimes you need some toughness to make peace, but always a peacemaker.
Can you win Iran without ground forces?
Say it?
Is an aerial campaign in Iran enough, or do you need ground forces?
Well, I'm not going to talk about ground forces. The last thing you want to do is ground forces.
Does Iran have 2 weeks, or could you strike before that? Are you essentially giving them a 2-week timeline?
I'm giving them a period of time. We're going to see what that period of time is, but I'm giving them a period of time, and I would say 2 weeks would be the maximum.
Mr. President, do you think deportations should focus on criminals or all people who are here illegally?
Should start focusing on criminals, and that's what we've been focused on. Very bad criminals, dangerous criminals.
But Stephen Miller said to go out and arrest every person who's here illegally. He's told ICE to arrest everyone who's here illegally. Do you agree with
Stephen
that?
and I have a very good understanding. He's a terrific person. We have a great understanding.
Mr. President, if there is an attack on U.S. assets, will you promise to conduct a full investigation and make it transparent with the American people before blaming Iran for such an attack?
Well, if there's an attack, we'll know almost immediately with modern equipment who made the attack, and those people will be very, very unhappy.
Prime Minister...
I want to get you people out of danger. You're in danger standing with me.
One more. Prime Minister Netanyahu said that they had the capacity to take out all of Iran's nuclear facilities. So what role would the U.S. be able to play, and why would they, if Israel says that they have all of the abilities, their own military?
I'm not sure he said that, but they really have a very limited capacity. They can break through a little section, but they can't go down very deep. They don't have that capacity, and we'll have to see what happens. Maybe it won't be necessary. Maybe it won't be necessary.
Would you like to see Congress pass a bill that bans child transgender surgeries?
Well, I know they're talking about it, aren't they? Huh? We're going to have to see how it comes to me in what form. Certainly, it's been something I've been talking about also. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. President. Appreciate it.
I'm going to bring in Danny Danon now, the ambassador who you just heard speaking at the UN earlier. We'll hopefully get Greg Palcott up in just a moment. Ambassador, welcome to you.
Thank you for having me, Sandra.
You're making a lot of news all over the place here. What is your message on Israel
in this moment where we are awaiting President Trump and this potential decision on how the United States will proceed within 2 weeks?
So I just came from the Security Council, and I heard the Iranian ambassador blaming Israel for everything. And I asked him, how can you blame us? Look what you did in the last 2 decades, threatening the U.S. and Israel and sowing chaos worldwide. So we will continue with our efforts.
And what did he say?
Well, basically just blamed us, and he asked for support from the international community. He played victim. He said, you know, put your pressure on Israel, not on us. So that was hypocrisy of the UN.
Is it your sense that he's rallying support and military aid from China or Russia or any other
He
of our
expects the
adversaries?
international community to come to his support and to make sure that we stop all efforts. But we will not stop until we will know that we actually neutralize the threat. You know, we decided, because we got the intelligence, Sandra, that Iran is building the capabilities. It's not only a threat of the Ayatollahs who are threatening the US and Israel. They actually build the capabilities. What we are seeing now with the ballistic missiles flying into Israel, imagine they actually had the nuclear capability by now. We cannot take that chance. So we are determined to continue. And, you know, regarding diplomatic talks, you know, I think it's a game of the Iranian. They want to buy time again and again and again. If they want to neutralize their capabilities, they can come and say, we are giving those capabilities, we are allowing inspectors to go everywhere, and we don't need enriched uranium to be in Iran. But they're not doing that. They want to buy time, and I don't think the international community should allow it.
I asked General Jack Keane, four-star General Jack Keane, during the noon hour today on Fox News Channel, as the president had a security meeting this morning. He's obviously about to depart. We could hear from him shortly. What he believes are the options President Trump is weighing in this moment. And he answered with this. Listen.
This is a strategic opportunity for us to remove, not to remove, but to end Iran's domination of the region in their adverse behavior that has been going on for all of these years. We can come close right now to ending that. And maybe in the long run, the Iranians themselves internally will make a change themselves in terms of their direction.
I want to get your thoughts on that.
Well, the decision is a U.S. decision. President Trump should decide what's good for the U.S., and I know that he will take the right decision. But the threat of Iran, and I agree with the general, is not only a threat to Israel. You know, they're sending missiles to the Gulf countries. They're sending their proxies to Lebanon, to Syria. Even in Europe now, we see the fingerprints of Iran regarding terrorist activities. So it's a global threat. And I think the international community should praise Israel. You know, the Chancellor of Germany said it very nice, Sandra. He said, Israel is doing the dirty work for all of us. That's exactly what's happening now. We are fighting evil, but that evil is a threat not only for Israel, but for the entire world.
Ambassador, this is Brian Hook, the former U.S. Special Rep for Iran. He was on Fox and Friends earlier today and said this. Listen.
The president's doing an excellent job of kind of letting events come his way. And my experience with him is that he very much wants to avoid conflict and get to a point where you can have a deal with the Iranian regime that addresses its nuclear program, and they should come back to the negotiating table and accept the offer that the president has made to resolve this peacefully.
Reaction to that?
Well, the Iranians are master of deception. They have so much experience in lying to everybody, so many years. So maybe now, after the real pressure, they will change course, hopefully. But if they will come to play the game, I think we should not allow it. So anyway, today what Israel did in the last few days changed the equation. Iran knows that, you know, they cannot just talk. We are there. We are determined to neutralize the threat. And I think that the support that we will receive from other countries to putting more pressure on Iran, it's something that we can change what's happening on the ground.
I'll end where we started with you saying Israel will not stop until you remove Iran's nuclear capabilities. We've been showing our viewers this chart so people can understand when we talk about their ability to enrich uranium for nuclear weaponry and just how fast that can happen in a matter of days. You look at that and you hear the confidence coming from the Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, and your ability to go at this alone. Is he right? Can you, or do you need the help of the United States and other?
Prime Minister Netanyahu demonstrated leadership. You know, he's leading this war effort. We are a small country, a tiny country, but we are brave. We have the technology. It will be longer for us to achieve all the goals, but we are capable of doing that. And we decided to do it. It was our decision, an independent decision of Israel, and we will leave it to the US to decide what they want to do about that. But leaving Iran as it is, those missiles that are flying to Israel today can reach Europe. Give them 6 months, a year, Sandra, they can reach the eastern shore of the U.S. also.
Yeah, and we see the fear of the Israeli people when those alarms go off, the people there, the Israeli people running from the beaches. I'll finish with that. How is the morale of the Israeli people?
Well, I tell you, I call my mother every morning. She's 83 years old.
God bless her.
And she told me that she wakes up to run to the shelter. But the people of Israel, they're willing to pay that price because they know we don't have any choice. For me, for her grandchildren, she understands she has to suffer. So the Israelis are suffering now, but they know it's the right thing to do.
You've had a big day. Thank you for stopping here.
Thank you very much.
Ambassador, thank you. All right.